Thanks for tuning into the For Those Made to Do podcast. We are your hosts, Mandy Sahota
and Bianca Pavel. This podcast is all about the doers who have achieved career success in the UAE and the stories that go with it.
In this episode of For Those Made to Do, Future-Proof Marketing, we have the pleasure to learn from Shyair Ganglani. Coming from the P&G School of Marketing, Shyair has leveraged his experience from traditional marketing techniques to building an AI platform that will transform the marketing industry. We discuss themes such as what marketers should do with the masses of data, utilizing AI at the early stages of your campaigns, and how to execute real-time marketing.
If you'd like to know how much budget marketers should put into experimentation, how you can leverage user-generated content to increase your brand's trust, and how to prepare for a future where marketing speaks to your virtual ambassador, take a shot of espresso and tune in with us. We hope you enjoy it. Hello everyone, and welcome back to a new episode of For Those Made to Do. Today, we're spotlighting an industry that's been put under major pressure by AI and which has had to reinvent itself many times just in the past couple of years. Marketing. In a country like the UAE, where some of the world's most powerful brands compete for our attention, having a robust marketing strategy is a must if you want to stay in the game. But what does it take to future-proof your marketing strategy? That's what we're here to answer today together. We're halfway through 2024, and AI is making serious waves, with tools assisting in content creation and promising to personalize the customer experience even further. Short-form video reigns supreme, and established strategies like influencer marketing and social media engagement remain crucial. In short, today's marketers must be resourceful and data-driven to stay on top of the latest trends. To dive deeper into the space, we have invited our friend Shyair Ganglani, a marketing pro. Shyair started his marketing career at Procter & Gamble and worked on some of the world's best-known products like Pampers and Always, became an acting chief marketing officer at Fine Hygienic Holding, and is now running two businesses, of which one is Maddox, helping marketeers to leverage AI and the Metaverse for their new strategies. Shyair, welcome to our studio. We're so excited to have you with us today. How are you?
I'm good, Bianca. Thank you. Glad to be here. Thank you guys for having me. Hey, Mandy, how are you?
Hi, I'm good too. So let's jump right in. We normally start with an icebreaker.
All right.
So we would like to know, what is the randomest thing you've seen in the Metaverse?
That is a great icebreaker. How long is the episode? Because there's quite a lot of random things I've seen in the Metaverse. I would say the most random thing was a baby's baptism that I stumbled
Wow.
upon on Decentraland. This is, you're talking about tail end of the pandemic, early 2023, and just happened to be, hanging out in the Metaverse, a couple of friends, and we walked past what looks like a church, and we were like, hey, let's go check it out. And there was a full-on baby's baptism being hosted in the Metaverse, and you're talking about 20 to 25 people in attendance, including a little avatar of the baby. And so we're like, this can't be real, right? Like, this has to be a joke. And so we went in and you start talking to some of the avatars. And no, it was actually little George's baptism from, I think, Minnesota, somewhere in the U.S., I want to say.
Of course, the U.S.
It was wild, right? You've got like the virtual holy water and the virtual baby and the virtual priest. That was definitely the most.
So in the Metaverse, because I don't know much about it, I've not actually entered into it yet. I'm going to say yet. Are you allowed to just gate crash parties?
You are in certain metaverse, so there isn't just one metaverse, right? There's Decentraland, Roblox, there's a bunch of them, but in some of them you are, yeah, which makes for a good way to make friends, but also a good way to get in trouble.
Yeah. I mean, we said random. You can't get any randomer than that, I think.
Well, yeah.
So.
Well, and the first time you go to the Metaverse, Mandy, I want to be the one to take you because you need a guide. It's like the Wild West over there.
Deal. Okay, we'll make that happen.
I'll join. I'll shadow.
Perfect. We'll take Bianca along.
So thank you for sharing that. We'd also like to just get to know you a little bit better before we dive into the meaty questions. So could you just give us a bit of an overview around your career trajectory and what are you most proud of in your career to date?
That is a good question. I'm not very fond of talking about myself, but let me give it a shot. I started my career actually in the police force in Singapore. I did a couple of years of national service. which was good because it kind of gives you the discipline that you need in the corporate world. I then very quickly joined P&G after my undergrad, where they teach you marketing. P&G is not really a company, it's more of a school for marketing, so that was great. And then, kind of baptism by fire, learning to sell pads to women in Saudi Arabia when I'm neither a woman or speaks Arabic or live in Saudi. But it really, kind of teaches you or stretches your skills to be able to be resourceful enough to serve that consumer without actually being in her shoes, right? So I think that was a good one. And then from there, I realized that, like me, other marketeers are increasingly struggling to understand their consumers, their segmentation, but also then deliver messaging that's actually relevant to them, which is why then I kind of stepped back from the corporate world, started the company, both Metacom and now Madex, where we're focused on giving marketeers the tools they need to really understand their market and then really deliver products and campaigns that meet their needs. What am I most proud of? I would say, other than, of course, my national service, is not being too rigid in my career, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there is a school of thought, and most people say, you should focus, you should stick to it, you shouldn't jump around. I've come to learn that that's not always necessarily true. If you keep an open mind to opportunities, which I did, and then kind of let them take me through the path, you kind of end up where you want to be. So that was what I'm most proud of, is not just sticking to something because I started it and just going where the opportunities are.
So today's episode is around future-proofing marketing. And before we go forward, I'd like to just step back a little bit, because you said P&G is a school for marketing. So if you could just give us at a high level a bit of an overview of what that means and what that looked like at that time for people who were looking to kind of get into branding, traditional level. What did P&G teach you?
So I hope my former boss doesn't listen to this episode. They didn't teach me anything, no. P&G, I mean, look, so they're almost a 200-year-old company. They invented brand management, things we take for granted today, like TV copy advertising or even soap operas. They're called soap operas because P&G invented them to sell more Tide or more soap. So they've been creating the framework for brand management and marketing for over 180 years now. So there's a lot that you can learn in terms of traditional brand building that you wouldn't even learn in theory in most universities or B schools. So that way, the foundation that they lay is very strong. And they have to, right? If you are managing billion-dollar brands around the world, but then, you're selling things that aren't very highly differentiated. You're selling soap, diapers, pads. How can you maintain your competitive edge? And that's where marketing and branding really comes in, right? So they put a lot of focus on, okay, how can you understand your consumer's need? How can you innovate towards that? But then how can you also communicate to her or them at their level where they really understand that, hey, this product meets my needs? So that's kind of the methodology that they ingrain in you from day one, which again makes it very daunting, but also very exciting to be someone who's able to sell, diapers to moms when you're not a mom, or pads to women when you're not a woman. So very useful kind of methodology that they have in place. I'll give them credit. What they have been able to do over the last century or so is stay relevant, right? So it's very easy for a brand to get comfortable, or a company to get comfortable and be like, okay, well, this is it. We're not innovating. We sold soap this way for the last 100 years. We'll sell soap this way for the next 100 years. But no, so they're very on the ball in terms of leveraging new technologies, engaging with the customers in the right touch points. So they're really robust methodology there, yeah.
So considering the growing demand for immersive experiences in the MENA region, what are some ways marketeers create new interactive campaigns that go beyond traditional advertising?
So as a bit of a cop-out on this answer, right? I don't believe there needs to be a difference between how we do immersive experiences versus traditional marketing, right? Or traditional advertising. If you go back to the foundation or the theory, it's as simple as understand what your consumer wants, what she wants to hear, and where she's receptive to hear it, right? This has been the same since, there were radio advertisings, or when P&G invented the soap opera. She wants a story. She wants to be somewhere where she's engaged. And then so you give her the message that she wants to hear on that platform by then crafting the message that's centered around her need, right? So that foundation or fundamental rules don't change whether you're doing it on the radio, on the newspaper, or in the metaverse, right? So I think it's important for marketers to really understand that, because most of these touch points, like the metaverse, or channels like the metaverse and social media and everything that's coming up, is all really just another touch point to talk to or engage with your consumer.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, it is very important to understand the nativity of that touch point, right? So if I come to a newspaper or I come to talk to a consumer on the newspaper, I can't put a video there, right? It doesn't work. Vice versa, if I'm talking to her on the metaverse, but I'm trying to use my social media ads or copy that I've been using typically on YouTube or Facebook, it's not going to work either, right? So yes, it's the same across touch points in terms of theory, but then as a marketeer, you really need to understand the platform that you're getting on and then make your ads or your campaigns really native to that platform. So that, I'd say, is the biggest tip I could give anyone. And also always allocate 20% of your marketing budget to try new things. If it works, that 20% will give you an 80% lift versus competition. If it doesn't work, it's okay. At least you learned something and you experimented.
In an industry like marketing as well, where it's seen as like a nice to have, especially when it comes to like budget and finance, how do you convince someone to give you 20% to experiment?
So 20% of your marketing budget that you've already convinced them to give you. But no, that's a very good question. I've faced this challenge several times. A little bit of a secret. I studied in finance. So I actually had my career. I wanted to start in finance, but I joined marketing. So I have always this eye on, okay, how do you convince your stakeholders that this is something that's worth investing in, right? And especially when you said like something as arbitrary as marketing, it's very hard to measure the attribution of my business is successful because my marketing is successful, right? Most people tend to get obsessed with metrics for exactly this reason is I need to convince my finance department or my CEO to give me budget. So I need to make sure that I'm tracking for CPM and CPC and what was the, uplift to my brand and brand health trackers, etc. While all of that is important from a dollars and cents standpoint to convince them to let you invest more, that should not be the foundation or the fundamental focus for a marketeer. I have a brand and a product and a message, and I want to communicate that to my consumer in the most efficient way possible. And that's all I need to do, right? And so when I'm doing that, yes, the metrics are a plus and it's a good way to convince people to keep investing. But really, as a true marketer, you'll know when your marketing is working, right? You'll know when you're engaging the consumer in the right way. You will start to see the intangibles like, your brand picking up, your awareness picking up, your top of mind recall picking up. So those are things that you should really look out for when you do a campaign. Yes, your agency will come and give you your whole, post-campaign analysis, and you'll take that to the finance team and be like, look, this is what we spent the money on. This is the uplift we got. Great. But what you really should do, though, is when you're looking at the campaign is, did this really deliver on the message I was trying to communicate to the consumer? And you'll know, especially in today's day and age where it's two-way communication. They leave comments, they leave, likes, there's engagement, you can track it. You'll know if your message is working. Now, for the finance and the CEO and the management guys, yes, you'll have to keep tracking your metrics, and you should. But as a marketeer, it's always about the intangibles, right? So.
Absolutely. And moving one step further from that, when we're looking at how much you know about your customers and all the data that marketers are collecting right now, behaviors, attitudes, values, etc., has marketing segmentation become easier or harder because of all the insights you have on people now?
That is exactly why I quit my job. No, it has become infinitely harder. It's become infinitely easier, but also infinitely harder. So it's become more important than ever to give the customer a personalized experience across the 360, right? So the product should be slightly personalized towards her, the messaging, the distribution, where she buys it, the price points, and the promotion. So it's more important than ever to really personalize your product offering to the consumer. Why it's infinitely harder is because we are drowning in data, right? We now have more information and more data and more insight into our consumers across these touch points than ever before. And so it's kind of a catch-22 where I design a campaign and I think, hey, it's going to work for this consumer. But then because I have all this information on the other segment of the consumer, I'm like, okay, but it's not going to work here. So then how do I make the call? Which one do I serve? I can't design for everybody as much as I'd like to. So it has become infinitely harder because now when I go to my boss or my decision maker and I'm like, I'm doing this campaign, it resonates with 80% of my market. They're like, okay, but what are you doing for the remaining 20%? I'll be like, okay, but 5 years ago, you didn't care about the remaining 20%. So it's a bittersweet where we as marketeers have all this information and we can really customize and, drive that incremental sales or brand loyalty. But at the same time, it makes our job that much more harder. The tools to do this, we're still catching up. when I left my corporate career. And one of the tools I wanted to introduce was exactly this, is how can we take all of this data and all of this exhaust that we have about our consumers across touch points and then feed it into an engine that creates for me a persona that I can chat to and be like, hey, I'm launching this marketing campaign. You're the amalgamation of all of this data that we have on a consumer. Could you tell me, would it work or not? Right? And when I started this 2 years ago, it seemed like a pipe dream because, again, how do you bring analysis to such unstructured data? And then lo and behold, August of last year, large language models came out with natural language processing, which now allows you to take all this unstructured data and actually do this. So yeah, that's what we are actually building at MadX, is an engine to let you do that, is take all of this information we now have about our consumer and then make a split-second decision using AI.
I love that. I think automation has come and disrupted many industries, enhanced and augmented many industries, but I can't think of any other industry like marketing where there's just so much opportunity to automate things and make things easier, because you're talking to tens of thousands of people at the same time, right? So you need a tool that helps you with that. So can we dive a bit deeper into what kind of tools are marketeers today using to augment their jobs and to really personalize that experience and that messaging for the customers? Chatbots, Gen AI, ChatGPT, what are you seeing?
So that is a very double-edged question, because I know a lot of marketers listening to this are worried about the future of AI and how it might steal their jobs, or the future of automation and how it might steal their jobs. That being said, anyone who's seen the marketing industry over the last 5 years has realized that automation has always been a reality, right? Wherever something can be automated, it has been. So previously, if I wanted to do a marketing campaign, I would make my own media plan between each touch point, newspaper, billboard, etc. And then I'd have to go and execute on those one by contacting an agency or a publisher, etc. Over the last 7 to 10 years, that has been fully automated, right? You have the likes of Google Display Network and Facebook Ad Manager and, your 360 campaign managers, where I can just go put in my campaign and, hey, it's done, presto, all automated, right? So the delivery of which has already been automated for marketeers, and most people are still here. We've not all lost our jobs, right? With AI, what we're seeing is you can go upstream to start to automate even the creative work or the thinking, right? And so this is really powerful, where before I would still have to do all the work, and then the automated part was just the delivery. I upload my campaign, I schedule my post, and I track my metrics. Whereas now the thinking part, the understanding the consumer, crafting the message for her, personalizing the message across different touch points, creating various assets that would target different target consumers. Typically before, that would take you weeks, if not months, to come up with, and then work with your creative agency and then build such a hyper-personalized toolkit. It would take you months and close to $1 million I've spent doing something like this, right? Now with Gen AI, you can actually start to automate even a lot more of that. And so when you look at marketing today, you realize that very soon the job of the marketeer is not going to be to go out hands and feet and do all of this themselves. It's going to be really getting to that fundamental understanding of their consumer, and then leveraging all of these tools, including Gen AI, all the way down to campaign automation, to then deliver on that insight or deliver the campaign that's centered around that understanding to the consumer. And so what you used to take maybe a year to get to that understanding and then get to that campaign and then get to that execution, you can now do in a matter of weeks, if not days.
People in these roles, though, if you're, say, a marketing executive, what advice would you give them in terms of how they should be approaching this?
Keep an open mind. So again, it's very easy. It's human nature. It's very easy to get comfortable and then to not want to then accept or acknowledge that the world around you is changing. I remember very heated arguments where I was still trying to convince our marketing manager or marketing director at the time, early in my career, to move our TV budget towards digital. This is, just when social media was picking up in the region. And I'm like, guys, okay, give me 10% of your marketing budget on TV, which was, in the millions, and let me put it on social media. And social media it's a fad, it's a phase, right? And now if you look, in fact, at the same company, I won't name names, but 80%, if not 85% of their total marketing budget is spent on digital media, right? So either you adapt or die, right? The world will change regardless of whether you want to or not. Like most technological advances, it's the same thing with AI. AI is not going to replace our jobs, just like Google Display Network didn't replace our jobs, right? People who know how to use AI will replace our jobs, right? So before, if you applied for a job in marketing, you didn't need to put on your CV, I know how to do Google Display or Google Ads or 360 or digital, nothing. It's just, hey, I know my consumer, I'm a creative guy, let me apply for a marketing job, and you'd probably get it. But then you start to put things like, oh, I can do, social media management, community management, ad campaign, etc. on your CV, because those were the skills that now people as marketeers needed. It'll be the same thing with AI, right? And with HALT and a lot of the institutes in the region, there's a lot of heavy focus on giving that upskill to students and marketeers, which is important because, again, AI will never replace your job. Someone who knows how to use AI will. And so it's important for marketeers to really stay that step ahead.
I think that's probably one of the biggest takeaways that we need to lean into, I think. So in the same vein, when we think about their ever-growing number of touch points between a brand and their consumer, how does a marketer ensure that they're leveraging the right mix to maximize the impact of their campaigns? Or should they just blast their messaging across every touch point and trying to create the maximum amount of impact?
That is actually a question very close to my heart, because most marketeers tend to spray and pray in today's digital media
This spray and
ecosystem.
pray happens in every industry, I think. It's quite
like,
interesting.
guys, we have no idea where to start. So let's, spend $10 on every touch point, $100 depending on the size of your brand. But let's spend $100 on every touch point, blast the consumer with a messaging, and then, see what sticks, and then, double down kind of on that. My fundamental issue with that approach is that, you don't get a second chance with a lot of consumers. So if you have the wrong message on the wrong touch point and she sees it, you've lost them.
Mm-hmm.
B, you don't have unlimited resources. And so, yes, if you work at a P&G or a Unilever or any of the big guys, even then you're answerable to your shareholders. So you shouldn't be blasting your marketing budget on every touch point. But when you're a smaller regional company or, a startup founder, you don't have that luxury of spraying and praying, right? So you're really stuck on, is my marketing campaign and my channel mix the right one before I spend even $1? Because if it's the wrong one, that dollar is wasted and I might not recover as a small business owner, right? So very important to get the right channel mix. Now, easier said than done, right? Up until now, there's been no tool or methodology to do that. Everything up until now was post-launch. So A/B testing, you put two messages on a touch point and you see which one works, but you've already spent $1 to kind of test it or $100 to kind of test it, right? So up until now, it's always been, let's test a small batch across touch points and then see what works and then double down, etc. But you've still kind of lost that novelty. You've already gone live and people have seen it. Now what we're seeing with AI is you can actually create personas of your target audience across these different touch points and their behaviors across these different touch points. And you can start to test your messaging, your concepts, your campaigns, your product feature innovation, right? Like, is this the right product feature to launch for this particular target segment? Before, I'd have to hire a 60 people focus group and spend $80,000 with, Kantar or Nielsen. Now you can do all of that in minutes and then really say, okay, I'm going to double down on this touch point, on this message with this consumer. And then if it doesn't seem to be working and you can't seem to optimize it, you can, try something else. But at least you've not wasted or burnt your entire budget up front across touch points because you're like no other way to validate your strategy.
Could I just ask a question on the validity of using these tools? Because obviously when you're testing in a more practical sense with like physical people and getting their opinion and you're getting this data, it's real. How do you feel like it compares?
I have been developing our AI engine for the last 6 months, and we've done a couple of proof of concepts with brands in the region, like big billion-dollar brands. And they've spent thousands of dollars on consumer research. They've done the focus groups. They've done the panels. So they have kind of a ground truth of sorts that, okay, this is what the consumer said when we put this stimulus in front of them. With AI, we've been able to recreate that behavior and recreate that persona, where the results we're getting when we run the exact same research with our personas, you're getting to a 95% fidelity to the real world results, right? So what they got as, okay, we would go with packaging B versus packaging A because the consumer in the focus group said XYZ, which took about 3 months and $80,000. We ran it on MadX on our platform, and we were able to get to the same results in 3 minutes. Exact same responses, exact same nuances, exact same drivers and barriers on why this packaging works versus the other. Personally, and let's hopefully won't say this outside this room, is I myself was shocked at the level of fidelity and accuracy
Yeah.
we could get to. And the reason is because AI, again, is very good at processing huge amounts of unstructured data. And this is, you're talking about the data exhaust across the internet that we all leave by just existing in today's day and age. It's able to take that exhaust, clean it up, remove it of bias, structure it, and then give you a foundation in which you can then further refine, right? So then we take industry or sector reports and then refine it further. And then we take maybe a small sample set of 5 to 6 consumers to teach AI how to think, and then we refine it. And by the time you're done with this, you're actually able to get to a 95% fidelity to real world research, except you've been able to now do it in 3 minutes or 5 minutes instead of, 3 months. What we're realizing is when you do traditional research, especially something as limited as 60 to 80 people in a focus group, because you have resource constraints and time constraints, there's a lot of inherent bias that we as marketeers before would have to apply ourselves mentally to try and hopefully remove that bias. But the consumer has a bias. It depends on the environment she's sitting in. If she fought with her boyfriend that morning, the fact that you're just being observed as a consumer, there's observational bias. The person asking her the question has unconscious bias in the way she asks the question. Me as a brand manager, when I get the results, I will read it a certain way because I'm hoping to validate a certain hypothesis. So I myself have bias. AI doesn't. So AI can strip away that bias and then really give you the true in-market behavior of your consumer. The problem here is, how do you convince a marketeer who has got results from a traditional research methodology source that tends to be biased and so might not have exactly the answer you're looking for, whereas AI can now give you exactly that answer you're looking for, but it's slightly different because it's removed the bias. And so now as a marketeer, you need to make a decision that, hey, do I trust what I've always trusted, which is traditional consumer research, or do I start to take a leap and realize that actually AI is able to give me more accurate insights than a real human because it's free of bias, right? So you can actually get to 95% accuracy in a matter of minutes as long as the sources of data that you're ingesting is properly refined, it's high quality, and it's representative of the consumer. But now I'm no longer spending 6 months trying to validate a product or a campaign idea. If I can do it in minutes, I'm able to iterate quicker, I'm able to capture trends quicker, I'm able to adapt to my consumers' ever-evolving needs quicker. So I think that's fundamentally where AI will help us understand.
And just to bring a practical lens to this, when we're saying AI and when you're talking about all the work you've done in this space, can you tell us a bit about the tools that you've used, even if they are tools that you've developed yourself that you're working on right now, just so people understand how AI can be used specifically on a data set that you're working with to get the insights that you want, rather than just the kind of generic from the internet?
I love that question, Bianca. So as a marketeer, regardless of what sector you're in or regardless of which market you're working for, you tend to follow a very similar cycle of steps or tasks that you do. So whether it's a campaign or a new product, you typically start with exploration, right? What is the business or the market need for this campaign or product? And then from exploration, you gather all this information, whether from Google, if you can afford it, you do research, or you look at industry reports like Kantar, Euromonitor, Statista. You take all that different information, you do a bit of analysis as a marketer that, okay, based on all these kind of different data sources that I'm getting, how do I make a decision? What's right? What does the consumer want? You do that analysis. You design some concepts around your hypothesis. So whether it's a marketing concept or a product concept, and then you go and you test that, right? So you go and put that stimulus in front of your consumer and say, hey, this is what I'm going to launch, or this is the campaign I'm going to run. What do you guys think? You get the consumer feedback. And then most of us don't have time or money to do that cycle again, right? We're just going to take what the consumer said, try to tweak it, and then launch, right? And then after launch, it's things like, okay, we've got all the campaign management, and then, the optimization, and then the brand health tracking. So these are typically the steps that any marketer will follow. AI is disrupting every single step. So, and when I say disrupting, it's in a good way. It's automating a lot of this stuff so that, again, I can get through the cycle quicker. And so therefore, I'm able to iterate my concepts better, but I'm also able to react quicker, right? I'm able to adapt quicker. So some of the tools I'm using around this cycle, as well as through campaign management, is around exploration. Typically, I would have to go out and look at Statista, Euromonitor, Google. If I'm in a specific industry, I'd read, WGSN for fashion, or I'd read TechCrunch if I'm a digital product. Now I'm using Madex's platform because I designed it to do exactly this for me, is go and look at exactly these same data sources, bring it in for me, analyze it, and then tell me, okay, these are the key insights that you need to know, right? Now, MadX or our engine is able to say, hey, by the way, last week you were researching this topic about, let's say, feminine hygiene in Saudi Arabia, because that's where I was. Here's a new trend that might be relevant to your consumer that you might want to look into, right? So now proactively AI is doing my job for me or helping me do my job. So that's one. Down all the way to the execution side, right? So when you go all the way to, okay, now I have my concept, it's validated. I want to create a campaign. I want to schedule my posts. I want to send it out. I want to track my brand health tracker. There's always been disparate tools that let you automate this. Now with AI, what we're seeing, this is not a MadX product, this is something I'm using, is there are AI marketing assistants that know how to do certain things that will do it for you. So because that AI assistant has been with you through every step of the cycle, and then you go and you say, okay, this is the campaign I want to launch. This is how I'm going to launch it. These are the consumers I want to target. The previous automation tools was very, SQL really, like if A happens, do B and hope for C outcome. Now with AI, right, and there are a couple of tools that I'm using, and we'll put it in the description to this episode, where it does the thinking for you. So it says, okay, your campaign's gone live. Yes, it's automated using the usual Facebook ad manager, Sprinkler, etc. But we're already hearing through social listening, for example, that people are reacting badly to your campaign. Typically, I would have to sit and, either read through my comments, etc., the day I launch my campaign, or I'm waiting for my agency to tell me. By then, I've already run the campaign for 2 weeks. I've wasted a lot of marketing spend, and I might have even created negative brand equity that I didn't want to do. Right now, with AI, from the minute I launch the campaign, it's listening for me, and it comes back and it tells me, hey, we're seeing slightly a negative reaction towards this campaign. You might want to pull back. So now instead of waiting 2 weeks, I'm doing it in a matter of a day. I've saved, the remaining 13 days worth of budget. I've not created any negative brand equity. And that AI assistant has also learned that my consumer didn't like this messaging because of XYZ. So the next time I'm about to run a campaign, I will test it with the same AI tool, and it will tell me, hey, by the way, remember last time, or even my colleague, right? Let's say Mandy's working with me, and it'll tell Mandy, by the way, Shyair tried this campaign 6 months ago. This was the results. You might want to think of something else, right? So tools didn't do that for us previously. Now they do. So automation is getting even more robust, also more intelligent. So there are a bunch of tools that you can use, including, of course, MadX, that we'll put in the link of the description.
Especially as the companies grow, then having this legacy trial and error information in the system is going to be so valuable. It's really, really interesting. Thank you for sharing.
Like a self-training model.
Yeah.
On marketing,
if I'm brand
right?
new, I just graduated from HALT, and I'm going to go and work into, my first day as a marketer at a P&G. No one has time to sit and train me and coach me day one, right?
On everything that's worked and not worked, yeah.
Most of the people who have tried something have already left, right? Like the guy who tried something on Always, he joined P&G when they had the first computer. And so he left a long time before I joined, but I was still using a lot of the methodology or theories that he had proved. And I'm like, okay, but I want to talk to this guy. And they were like, good luck, buddies. If AI is the memory of the company, that will become super helpful. Yeah.
Interesting. With AI helping the marketing output and everything's being executed quicker, and there's so much user-generated content, such as reviews, opinions, photos, videos, it's a powerful tool, right? How can marketers harness the user-generated content to increase brand trust, boost sales, and create a loyal community?
This is now more, it's always been important, but it's now more important than ever, right? So with the rise of Gen AI and the ability to just flood and inundate the consumer with messaging and assets and copy, and, as a marketer, we can now put out 10 pieces of content in a minute, where it used to take us 10 days to put out one piece of content, right? So like you, all your brands and all your competitors are going to be doing this. And as consumers or audience, we're going to be flooded with all of this stuff, right? And especially given Gen AI is so convincing and getting even more convincing, as an audience, we are going to start to wonder or question, hey, the brand is just using AI to try and lie to me. UGC, customer testimonials, real insight and real feedback from real consumers about your product will become invaluable, right? As an audience or as a consumer, all I'm going to be looking for is, okay, yes, AI says this and the brand itself says that, but is there a real consumer testimonial that I can hook onto to really understand, will this product work for me? And there are still sources that I can do that. If the product is popular enough, I can go in as a consumer, do my own research on Reddit or
almost to
et
like validate what's being fed to you.
Exactly, right? To validate what's been fed to me. But if the brand itself can give me that UGC and say, hey guys, look, this is what we think of our brand or our product. We think it's awesome. But here's 10 people that think the same. And here's 2 people who didn't, right? And that's okay.
Yeah.
The product might not be for everyone. And as brands, it's important to accept that. But if the brand can tell me, here's why 10 people like you liked the product, and 2 people didn't like it because, hey, well, it's the iPhone Plus and their hands are too small. I'm just making things up, right? So that's okay. But then I start to trust the brand more, is that they're not just, out there using AI and a bunch of tools to try and bamboozle me into buying the product. They're actually very honest and they're doing my job for me or my research for me by really looking out for that or curating that UGC that's really helpful for me to make my purchase decision. That's a brand I would trust and respect. So if you're a brand or a marketeer, a brand manager, really leverage or cultivate that UGC, even good or bad. Be honest. Let it be balanced. Take that and then use that to really sell your brand to the consumer. It'll really build trust, especially in today's Gen AI world.
Absolutely. I was just going to say that. I think in this world where, we're automating more and more and AI is creating more and more content, I think the human in us wants to hear from another human as well. We can't forget about this need and urge to connect with other people. So I think reviews and feedback and kind of user-generated content is that one great way to humanize your brand and your brand presence as well, and let your customers kind of hear from others like them. But if you're able to cut through the noise and bring, like you were saying, this is what other people like you have said about this product, then I guess it just reinforces that, and it does me a service as a customer, and I'd be much more likely to trust. That's really powerful. So that brings us to influencing as well, which is something that I think people kind of laughed at a few years back. I was one of them. I was like, what is this new thing?
Same.
And now, like you were saying, so much marketing strategy kind of relies on what other people are creating about the brand out there. And a big share of the market is in influencing right now. We're just curious to understand a bit about what this industry looks like in the UAE in particular, maybe with the lens on Dubai, if you want, in 2024. How big is this industry and how is it used by marketeers?
So on a personal front, the whole Habibi come to Dubai trend is not something I'm fond of, given it's increasing our rents.
I agree.
But no, the reason the trend is working is because influencer marketing is so powerful, and Dubai just happens to be the capital of it for the world. Like the way our social and cultural frameworks are set, it allows for anyone to come here and really pursue that Dubai dream of becoming an influencer, or if they were an influencer, to come here and really grow without having to worry about things like infrastructure. So Dubai is the center of influencers in the world. Brands should leverage it. And it is a very powerful tool because, like you were saying, Bianca, as a human, you want to know what another human thinks because that is the most powerful source of truth or validation. That being said, it's become a racket, right? So while it is still very effective at selling your product or getting your message across, it has been bastardized. Can I say bastardized on the podcast?
You can.
Yeah.
It has been bastardized to a point where now consumers are in fact starting to trust less what the influencer is trying to sell them, especially your macro influencers with the 1-2 million followers, because they know consumers are very smart. Marketers should never assume that the consumers have no idea what's going on. The consumer knows that if someone has 1-2 million followers and she's plugging a product, she's been paid an exorbitant amount to plug that product.
Yeah.
Right? And so she's going to plug anything. Whoever's going to pay her, she'll plug it. Okay, yes, it should be in line with her identity and her brand image and all of that. But most macro influencers, they're plugging. So that's where I feel like there's a bit of a drop off where marketers shouldn't engage. Where they should look at is that sweet spot of micro and macro influencers, the 10 to 50 or 100,000 follower influencers, the really dedicated influencers that want to give their followers the best information, the best advice, the best guidance, the ones whose followers trust them that, hey, if they're plugging a product, sure, they made a little bit of money on it because they need to eat, but they really believe in their product. They're not just going for XYZ brand. So I think there is a way for brands to leverage influencers. It's a very powerful channel. I know too many brands that have just basically taken their TV copy, paid an influencer to air it, and the influencer's like, yeah, fine, you're paying me, I'll air it. But to the consumer, the audience, they were just like, is this an ad? What is going on? Have I accidentally scrolled to the wrong channel? So it just doesn't work.
I heard someone say a while back that she uses two types of influencers, the macro and the micro. And the macro, I think the example was Kim Kardashian or that kind of level. And she said, I would not really use Kim Kardashian for sales. That's not the point. She's a brand ambassador. So I would pay for her to advertise my product. She'll only air it once, but then I'll use that content over and over and over again in all of my channels for the next 6 months. And I'll just say, as seen on Kim Kardashian. And I think there's a lot of power in, using influencers very strategically to advance your brand image and then using others to actually sell your brand.
There is absolutely. In fact, this reminds me of a campaign I ran once, not at P&G. We were doing this with a brand in Singapore. And we learned from their target audience that actually, and the brand wanted to hire Kim Kardashian, right? It's public knowledge now, so I can talk about it. The brand wanted to hire Kim Kardashian to do their influencer campaign. And so before they did, I'm like, guys, can you go talk to your target audience and understand, will this really work? Well, you can talk to 10 of them. And out of the 10 they spoke to, they were like, if we love Kim Kardashian, but if she's promoting this product, we're not going to believe it. We're not buying it, right? And so instead of spending, I think they wanted to spend $1.2 million on the campaign. What we did was this. We shipped her a box of our product, right? Cost us, I think, $300 with DHL. Shipped her a box of our product. She obviously didn't open it, never replied to us, didn't respond, or didn't post anything. We didn't pay her any of that. She spent $300 plus free case of products. Whether she used it or not, she did it. We took a copy of that DHL receipt and we went and did a campaign saying, guys, we sent a free case of our products to Kim Kardashian and asked her to do a campaign with us. But she wanted to charge $1 million. We realized we would rather spend that $1 million giving you guys the discounts you deserve.
Oh, I love that.
Why don't you try our product now? We didn't pay Kim Kardashian. We used her name in a very sly way where it was public domain name. So we did. And she wasn't our influencer, right? And our users, our consumers, our shoppers really appreciated that because one, it was quirky.
Or they also amused,
but two, they realized like, hey, this brand was smart enough not to spend $1 million. Rather, they'd give us
we
the
get
and
something
we
back.
So,
love it.
there's multiple ways you can really leverage influencers. Again, it really goes down to understanding what will resonate with your end audience, not their end audience.
I absolutely love that point of being quick and responsive and witty and very creative with your campaigns, which I guess is something that AI cannot do at this point. I don't think AI could have thought of that.
And it's also a risk, right? Because it can go really right and sometimes it can just go really wrong.
So wrong.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Which is why, I mean, with AI, it can help you do all the other stuff, right? Understanding the consumer or testing if this concept would go badly or negatively with the specific target audience. But you as a marketeer, only you can bring in this level of human ingenuity, right? Maybe AI will get there. We don't know. But as of now, you're still in the driver's seat. AI is just a tool and it can really help you. So, yeah.
And on that note, where do you stand on real-time marketing?
That is probably the trickiest question you will ask me in this episode, Bianca. Okay, I'm going to say something. It might come off as a bit politically incorrect, or not everyone will agree with me, but hey, this is my opinion as a marketer. Yes, if you're a for-profit brand, it's fine if you want to take advantage of moment marketing when it comes to the lighthearted pop culture stuff. There's a trend on TikTok and you want to jump on it as a brand because you want to seem cool and trendy. Go for it, especially if it resonates with your brand promise or your brand benefit. Don't try to force fit, your brand against a trend that doesn't work. Those stuff, I'm all for it. Like if this whole I'm looking for a man in finance thing is going on and you're a fintech company, by all means, jump on that trend and the consumer will love you for it. Where it starts to get a bit dodgy is when you go towards the more serious stuff, right? The social responsibility stuff, the corporate responsibility stuff. Yes, every brand is now expected to have a moral compass and the consumer wants to vote with her dollar with the brands that have, stand for the same thing she stands for, whereas the brands that don't, she won't buy from them. So it's become increasingly hard as a brand that's meant to be, hey, we're here for profit. We're here to give you the best product at the best price while making the best return for our shareholders. But now everyone's expecting me as a brand to have a moral compass. It's tricky, right? And why it's tricky is because especially if you're a big brand, like let's say you're a big company at P&G, etc., and you're here to serve the masses themselves will always have two, if not more, sides on any issue.
Of course.
So then how do you as a brand or a brand manager or marketeer decide, this is the one I want to go out, or this is the one I want to serve and support and resonate with. But then I know for a fact I'm going to alienate the second cohort, right? That stand on the other side of the issue or the opposite side of the issue. And then there's also the whole gray area in between that, right? I'll give you an example from my career. When the Suez Canal, I don't want to say crisis, but there was an incident that happened a couple of years ago, if you guys remember, where a cargo ship overturned and it blocked the Suez Canal, right? Causing worldwide global shipping crisis. Our brands were affected as well, right? Our entire shippings and logistics got affected. But at the time, I was working on a brand that sold tissue paper that had decongesting balm, right? It would clear your nasal canal. It was a pharmaceutical tissue paper. And we ran a social media ad where with the picture of the tissue box, we show a clear nose and we said, here's something that can help you clear the canal. Tied the benefit back into the moment, right? 60, I would say 60%, but most our consumers loved it, right? One of our highest engaged posts on social media, like, this is so smart, this is so funny. The next thing you know, we were getting a call from one of the ministries in Egypt, I won't name which ministry, saying, and the brand I was working on is a massive brand in Egypt, the second largest market. They're like, guys, this is not okay. You need to take it down right now.
Oh.
Right? Like, this is insulting to a crisis that has affected our country, our economy. Take it down right now. And I took it down in an instant. But that is a perfect example, right? Where it was fun, lighthearted. We wanted to get involved in the moment. Our consumers, our audience loved it, but it did offend a certain cohort. And so you as a brand, you don't, your hands are tied. Do you want to appeal to these guys, but then upset these guys? Or do you want to appeal to these guys and upset these guys? So there are a lot of, especially in today's zeitgeist, there are a lot of these things where, you can be pro this, but then you're anti that, or you're pro that. My advice to for-profit brands is, for as much as you can, take advantage of the lighthearted moments, right? The hallmark moments, as I call them, but try to steer clear of the political and the social moments, because there is just no way to get it right.
I think it's a really nice way to wrap up the conversation. And thank you for all the anecdotes and all the advice that you've given, because genuinely, I think it's given us a lot to think about on what mindset we should have when we want to think about the future of marketing moving forward. So to close off the episode, we're going to share with you a teaser of the wildcard question that will be released in our bonus episode. And this allows the listeners to reflect and digest on the conversation that we've just had and to think about how they themselves would approach the question in the bonus episode. So the question is, how can AI be harnessed to personalize marketing messages and recommendations for the diverse customer base in the MENA region? So I'm going to leave that with you to think about and marinate over. And thank you so much for being with us here today.
I
really enjoyed the conversation.
You guys are amazing. The show is amazing, by the way. And well done to you guys. Really, I really think this was missing here in the region, especially for marketeers. There tends to be a lot of finance and business podcasts, but for marketeers, this was especially for our region lacking, and you guys are doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.